You see a pale green insect resting on your window. Its body soft-looking, its wings transparent, its antennae absurdly long. It does not look armored, it does not look important, and when it flutters against the glass at night, your first reaction may be simple. Swat it, wipe it away, move on. Wait a second. You may be looking at one of the most useful insects that has wandered anywhere near your house. Keep the aphid hunter. Insect, green lacewing, especially species in the genus Chrysoperla, including Chrysoperla carnea and Chrysoperla rufilabris. The delicate adult on your window is connected to a larval stage, so predatory that gardeners sometimes call the larvae aphid lions. Those larvae hunt aphids, thrips, mites, mealybugs, whiteflies, small caterpillars, and insect eggs. A single larva can consume roughly 150 to 200 aphids in a week under favorable conditions, and reports across lacewing studies and biological control programs put lifetime consumption by a larva into the hundreds. So before you crush that green insect because it appeared where you did not invite it, you should know what it is doing around your yard, what its offspring are capable of, what its presence tells you about the insects living on your plants, and when you should leave it alone instead of reaching for a pesticide. At first glance, you might assume the insect on your glass is a small moth, a mosquito-like pest, or something that has come indoors to feed. That impression falls apart when you look closely. Adult green lacewings in common Chrysoperla species are generally about 12 to 20 millimeters long, roughly half to 3/4 of an inch, with pale green bodies, long thread-like antennae, prominent golden or copper-colored eyes, and 2 pairs of transparent wings covered with a dense network of veins. Those veins produce the lace in lacewing. Adults often fly in the evening and at night, which is one reason you find them around porch lights, illuminated windows, and doors after dark. Their flight is usually fluttering rather than fast and direct. You may hear green lacewing used as though it were one single animal, but you are actually dealing with a family of related insects, Chrysopidae, within the order Neuroptera, the group whose name refers to their strongly veined wings. Chrysoperla carnea is widespread across large portions of the United States, while Chrysoperla rufilabris is particularly associated with more humid regions, including much of the southeastern and midwestern United States. Green lacewings as a group occur broadly across North America. And this is important. The adult on your window is not an aphid itself, not a plant-sucking leafhopper, and not a tiny green moth chewing your leaves. Many Chrysoperla adults live primarily on nectar, pollen, and honeydew, the sugary liquid produced by sap-feeding insects. The heavy predation happens mainly during the larval stage, so the fragile green adult you are tempted to kill is not necessarily the hunter at that moment. It is something just as valuable, the reproductive stage capable of producing the hunters. When you discover a strange, brownish, alligator-shaped insect crawling across a leaf, your instinct may be even worse. Unlike the elegant adult, a lacewing larva looks built for violence. In this case, that appearance is accurate, but the violence is directed mostly at insects you probably do not want. Newly hatched larvae begin tiny, eventually reaching roughly 6 to 8 millimeters in commonly used Chrysoperla biological control species, and they carry a pair of long, curved jaws at the front of the head. These are not ordinary chewing jaws. The mandibles function as piercing, sucking structures. A larva grabs an aphid, punctures it, introduces digestive material, and withdraws the liquefied contents. To you, an aphid colony may look like a motionless cluster of green dots. To a lacewing larva, it is a concentrated field of prey. The life cycle makes the story even stranger. You may notice what looks like a tiny white or pale green bead floating above a leaf on a hair. Do not scrape it off automatically. That can be a lacewing egg. Females place their eggs at the tips of fine stalks, separating vulnerable eggs from the leaf surface and from one another. After hatching, Chrysoperla larvae pass through 3 larval stages, called instars, meaning successive growth stages separated by molts. Under warm conditions, the larval period can last roughly 2 to 3 weeks. Mature larvae then spin rounded silken cocoons, pupate, and later emerge as winged adults. Females can lay hundreds of eggs, and several generations may develop during a growing season, depending strongly on temperature and species. Now look at your plants, because this is where people often blame the wrong animal. If a lacewing larva is sitting beside a damaged pepper leaf, you may assume it made the damage. It almost certainly did not. Green lacewing larvae are predators, not leaf-chewing herbivores. If your plant is covered in aphids, the injury you see usually looks different from caterpillar or slug feeding. Aphids insert narrow mouthparts into plant tissue and remove sap. New leaves can curl, twist, yellow, or become distorted rather than simply disappearing in bites. Aphids also excrete sticky honeydew, so leaves below a colony may feel tacky and can later develop dark, sooty mold growing on that sugary coating. By contrast, a caterpillar usually leaves missing leaf tissue, definite holes, scalloped edges, skeletonized areas, or obvious bites accompanied by pellets of feces. A slug can also remove chunks of tissue, but slug damage is often irregular and is frequently accompanied by the silvery, dried slime trails that aphids do not produce. If you see lacewing larvae among curled, aphid-covered shoots, those larvae are not the vandals standing at the crime scene. They are the predators responding to it. You might still wonder whether one tiny predator can make enough difference to matter. That is where green lacewings become more impressive. Cornell's biological control information describes common green lacewing larvae attacking aphids, thrips, plant hoppers, leaf hoppers, mealybugs, scale insects, and other soft-bodied prey, with reports of individual larvae consuming between about 100 and 600 aphids over the larval period, depending on species and conditions. University of Minnesota Extension gives a useful garden scale figure of as many as about 200 aphids per larva per week, while North Carolina State reports up to around 150 per week. The exact number changes with temperature, prey species, plant structure, larval age, and how easily prey can be reached. That means the payoff to your yard is not abstract. On your roses, lacewing larvae can hunt colonies of aphids feeding on tender shoots. Around vegetables, they can take aphids and thrips. In protected crops and greenhouse situations, they are used against whiteflies and mealybugs as well. They can eat spider mites and caterpillar eggs, and agricultural lacewing species also attack small larvae of moth pests. You are essentially allowing a mobile predator to search folds, stems, leaf undersides, and growing tips on its own, including places you might miss with a spray. Now compare that with chemical control. If you spray a broad-spectrum insecticide over an aphid colony, you may kill aphids quickly, but you can also kill the insects that were already suppressing them. Lacewings, lady beetles, parasitoid wasps, and other beneficial arthropods. Extension programs therefore repeatedly recommend protecting these natural enemies and avoiding broad-spectrum insecticides when possible. If aphids genuinely require treatment, insecticidal soap or horticultural oil can often provide a more targeted option because they work mainly by direct contact and leave less persistent toxic residue than many conventional broad-spectrum products. A lacewing larva, meanwhile, does not coat your flowers with residue, does not need you to aim at the underside of every leaf, and continues searching after the first aphid is gone. But you should not turn the lacewing into a miracle cure. Imagine one infested pepper plant with perhaps several dozen aphids concentrated on 2 tender shoots and 2 or 3 active lacewing larvae searching through them. Given predation rates measured in the hundreds of aphids per larva over the larval period, predators may plausibly bring that colony downward if new aphids are not reproducing faster than the predators can consume them. Now imagine 20 plants with dense aphid colonies covering nearly every growing tip, leaves already curling, honeydew dripping onto foliage below, and ants constantly moving among the aphids. 1 or 2 lacewing larvae are not going to erase that infestation overnight. Aphids reproduce extremely rapidly, and extension guidance specifically notes that predator populations can take time to catch up. The practical threshold is therefore visible rather than magical. Scattered colonies with clean new growth appearing are a situation in which you can often give predators time. Expanding colonies accompanied by persistent leaf distortion, heavy honeydew, stunting or damage to developing flowers and fruit tell you that biological control alone is no longer keeping pace. Then there is the fear question. A green insect lands on your arm and you jerk away. Something with jaws capable of emptying an aphid must surely be dangerous to you, right? The scale changes everything. Adult green lacewings are not blood-feeding insects, and they do not seek you out as prey. Many adults feed largely on pollen, nectar, and honeydew. The larvae do possess functional jaws and can occasionally nip human skin if handled or trapped against it. But you are not part of their feeding ecology. Their normal prey is measured in millimeters. Aphids, mites, thrips, insect eggs, mealybugs, and other small arthropods. And when the adult on your window suddenly launches itself into the room, speed does not mean aggression. Flight is escape and dispersal. Adults are especially active in the evening and are commonly attracted toward lights. Your illuminated window can pull them toward the house in the same way it attracts many nocturnal insects. They are not establishing an attack route into your bedroom. They have no reason to hunt you, your dog, your cat, your furniture, or the food in your pantry. If one repeatedly bumps against the lampshade, what you are seeing is a confused outdoor insect responding to light, not an insect trying to close the distance between itself and you. You might think finding a lacewing around your house is random. Sometimes it is simply attraction to a light, but outdoors, its presence can also give you useful information. Predators tend to appear where prey and food resources exist. Lacewing females often place eggs near potential prey, because the larvae that hatch from those eggs need immediate access to small arthropods. Adults also use nectar, pollen, and honeydew as food sources. So if you begin seeing lacewing eggs suspended on stalks around your roses, peppers, citrus, ornamentals, or vegetable beds, inspect the nearby growing tips and leaf undersides. You may find aphids, whiteflies, thrips, mites, mealybugs, or insect eggs nearby. Cornell notes that the presence of crop pests can be critical in attracting and sustaining lacewing populations, because larvae require adequate prey to develop. There is another clue you should watch for: ants. If you find aphids and ants patrolling the same stem, the ants may be feeding on aphid honeydew and defending those aphids against predators. Colorado State notes that controlling ant activity can improve lacewing effectiveness against aphids because ants can protect aphid colonies and interfere with lacewing larvae. So the lacewing itself can be part of a larger diagnostic picture. Lacewing eggs plus aphids tell you prey is available. Aphids plus heavy ant traffic tell you the predators may be facing bodyguards. Sticky leaves plus black sooty mold tell you sap-feeding insects have probably been producing honeydew for some time. Instead of treating every insect as a separate problem, you can read the relationships among them. So when you find a green lacewing on your window, you have 3 sensible choices. First, leave it alone. If the window is in a porch, garage, greenhouse, or sheltered outdoor area, and the insect can eventually leave, doing nothing is often the best action. Outdoors, you can make your yard more useful to lacewings by maintaining flowering plants that provide nectar and pollen, tolerating a low level of aphids, and avoiding unnecessary broad-spectrum pesticide applications. University of Minnesota specifically recommends continuous flowering resources, allowing some aphids to remain, reducing pesticide use, and leaving some plant debris as overwintering habitat. Second, if the lacewing is trapped inside your house, relocate it instead of crushing it. Put a glass or clear container over it, slide stiff paper underneath, and release it outdoors near vegetation rather than onto a bare driveway or hot wall. You do not need to touch the insect with your fingers, and you do not need insecticide for a single lacewing indoors. Third, fix the root cause if you are seeing a broader pest problem. Inspect your plants before spraying them. Turn leaves over. Check tender stems. Look for clusters of aphids, sticky honeydew, curling growth, whitefly nymphs, thrips injury, ants, and lacewing eggs. If aphids remain in scattered colonies and your plant is continuing to produce clean new growth, give predators time. In greenhouse guidance, a reduction in aphids following lacewing use can become apparent over roughly 2 weeks, with cleaner new growth serving as one useful sign that control is working. If, instead, new leaves continue emerging distorted, colonies spread onto multiple growing tips, honeydew becomes heavy enough to coat leaves below, or flowers and developing fruit are being compromised, intervene. Start with mechanical removal where practical. A strong stream of water can knock aphids from sturdy plants, or use a properly labeled insecticidal soap or horticultural oil when necessary, while preserving as many predators as possible. That is the line you need to remember. One green lacewing on your window is not an infestation. One lacewing larva on your rose is not plant damage. A few aphids can even help maintain the predators that prevent a few aphids from becoming thousands. The problem begins when plant injury is continuing faster than the natural enemies can suppress it. Distorted new growth keeps expanding, honeydew accumulates, colonies occupy multiple fresh shoots, or reproductive parts of the plant are being damaged. At that point, you manage the aphids while trying not to eliminate the predators along with them. So, the next time that translucent green insect appears against your glass, look at it for another second before your hand comes down. Somewhere nearby, perhaps already on a leaf in your yard, its offspring may be walking through an aphid colony with 2 hollow, sickle-shaped jaws, doing precisely the pest control work you would otherwise have to do yourself. The insect that looks too delicate to matter is connected to one of the most efficient small predators in your garden. Have you ever run into green lacewings in your own home? Tell me in the comments. I read every one. If you want to know who else is living in your house, subscribe. In the next episode, we will look at another creature people routinely kill before realizing what it has been hunting around them. See you in the next episode.